Hey, it's DiAlto, and this is the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. From body image, sex, spirituality, money and relationships, to motherhood, creativity, business, communication, and desire, Untamed the Wild Soul Woman is the place to come for real stories and powerful advice to help you reclaim and redefine womanhood in the 21st century. Hello, sweet treats, wild friends, and lovers of all things Untamed. Real quick, before we dive into today's show, I just wanted to make sure you know where to go for all of the other extra resources that I create, not just here related to the podcast, but in general. So everything related to the Untame Yourself world exists over at untameyourself.com. You can head over there and enter your name and email anywhere on that homepage, and you will get email notifications every week when we write blog posts, which often are just deeper dives into the topics that we talk about here on the podcast. We do free video training series, online workshops. Sometimes we're collaborating on a deeper level with some of the women that we have here on the show. So if you don't want to miss out on any of those resources or any of the things coming up in the next few months that I have in the pipeline for you, one of which is going to be a free training on transparent communication, how to have a courageous conversation, and how to apply that to any kind of relationship in your life, which will be coming up in March or April. Haven't decided yet. Definitely enter your name and email at untameyourself.com so you don't miss out on any of those things. Also over there, for those of you who really love the show, who really love the conversations with women and really crave to connect with women like you who are on a similar path to you, but in a real life setting, like to get out of your town and to connect in person and circle up with women who you really can connect with, women who get you and will support you. I have a couple Untame Yourself weekend retreats going on in 2016, the next of which is April 29th through May 1st here in San Diego. So if that's something you're interested in, just to quickly let you know, what we really hone in on in those weekend retreats are the four main areas in life: health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality. So if you have anything that you'd like to work on, expand into, become more available and receptive for in any of those categories, check out a retreat. You can apply at untameyourself.com/weekend-retreat. And when you apply, I see all the applications. They come straight to me. If it's a good fit, I'll be in touch to schedule an interview and we'll go from there. So that was it. Just what I wanted to share with you before we get rolling today. Now for today's show. Elizabeth DiAlto here, your host for the Untamed the Wild Soul Woman podcast. And today's question, which came in quite a while ago, pretty simple question, not so simple of an answer, is how can I be more wild? And so to answer that question, the first thing that you need to figure out is, what does wild mean for you? So for those of you who listen to interviews, you might notice that sometimes at the end of the interview, I'll ask people, under the umbrella of untaming the wild soul woman or untaming your wild soul, what does that mean for you? What is your definition of untamed? What is your definition of wild? And ultimately, it really just means coming home to who you really are, connecting with your true nature. For those of you who have read my book, there's some solid practices in there and some really amazing concepts around putting yourself first and realizing where in your life you have made choices or you have maybe taken on beliefs or an identity based on what you think you should be or how you think you're supposed to act or how you think you're supposed to be. So that's the first place to start. The first place to start is really figuring out what is your true nature. And for some of us, the easiest place to find that answer is to just think back when you were a kid. What were the things that came most easily to you? What were the things that lit you up? What were the things you got most excited about? Here in your adult life, a great place to look and see what's true nature for you or what's wild for you. And again, wild doesn't have to mean like barefoot screaming in the woods like a crazy person. It really is just like your wild, your nature, has always been deep down inside of you. You might notice, what are the things that you get complimented for most often? What are the things that other people notice about you that comes so naturally to you, you don't even have to think about it? This has come up in some podcast interviews lately, which will be coming up in March, April, and May, around, what are your superpowers? What are the things that come so easily and so naturally to you that you take for granted? And you might want to ask other people that question. What do you think are my superpowers? Some of mine are things like asking amazing questions, which you notice in the podcast interview. I'm able to really see big concepts and big patterns and pull the threads that are going to be the most useful or the most helpful, not in the sense of an interview, but in the sense of a client, to be able to listen to a large amount of information and then pull out little pieces that work really well, right? For all women, places to kind of discover your nature and your wildness will definitely be sensuality. And obviously you've heard me say this before, it's not just about sexuality, but this is about all of your senses, engaging your senses, engaging with beauty, engaging with nature, coming home to Mother Nature, being grounded and actually letting yourself feel things in your body from, your senses, your emotions, anything like that. Things that are yeses for you, things that are no for you. So those things are wild. This also, and if you're looking for like a quick fix kind of answer, this is not the right place to come, because I'm always going to encourage you to go out and do some trial and error. Because just because something worked for you or was wild for you at one point doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. As you evolve, as you grow, as you shift, as you give yourself permission to be more comfortable in your own skin and to express yourself, for a lot of women, wildness has to do with self-expression, feeling safe and trusting yourself to use your own voice and to speak up. And you might not go from 0 to 90 miles an hour. You might need to take small little incremental steps, practice speaking up a little bit at a time, and then notice that you get comfortable. Notice the world doesn't end. Notice you don't die, and then do it a little bit more. You might want to try various movement practices. Wild Soul movement is always an option. The shorter, easier access version, Freedom in 44, is an option now. You can go to different dance classes. Dance is an amazing way to discover what's wild for you. Some women love a more structured dance, a more graceful dance like a ballet. Some women want to go to like a tribal, like a West African dance. I'm currently loving pole dance and burlesque and all things exotic dance. So by moving your body, you can also notice what's wild for you. Another way to connect is connecting through animals. So, in our Western culture, we are super connected with pets and like household animals, but go to a zoo or watch there's amazing documentaries, or grab some National Geographic or follow them on Instagram and notice what animals really jump out at you and really speak to you. Maybe you can get some information there. I love the book Awakening Shakti. You've probably heard me mention that before, or any study of feminine archetypes. All of these things that just lead us down some path of discovering what feels true for me, what feels right to me. It might not look how someone else's look. It might not look how mine looks, but just notice where you feel called and inspired, and follow those threads and see what you get out of them. It's really a lot of experimentation, trial and error, but also pausing and sitting and being with things long enough to really discern if it feels right and good and true and energizing and nourishing for you, or not. And feel free. Like, this isn't about finish what you start. If you start something and it doesn't feel good or it doesn't feel true, don't do it, right? So that's how you discover. You give yourself permission to try things out. It's almost like trying on clothes, right? You don't feel guilty if you take a pile of clothes into the fitting room and only one or two things works about giving the other things back. This is the same thing. Don't feel guilty about trying things out and noticing a bunch of things might not work, but then some things really will. So that's my answer to this week's question of how can I be more wild? To continue this conversation, as always, you can come on over into our Facebook group, untameyourself.com/Facebook. Also, if you're not subscribed at untameyourself.com, head over there now and make sure you enter your name and email somewhere on that homepage. This way we can keep you up to date with other updates, blog posts, our Feel Good Friday emails where I like to share just general things that I'm finding across the internet, or stories or books or whatever else is going on that I'm really digging right now if you're interested in those updates. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you next week.
So what ended up happening is I got myself into a lot of credit card debt in my early 20s as I was starting my business. I was living in New York City. I was taking trips I had no business taking. I was wearing shoes I had no business wearing. I was going to dinners I had no business going to. And I got myself into a lot of debt while living in an apartment that my mother owned. So I wasn't even paying rent. Like, it was embarrassing. And I became embarrassed about it. And I didn't want anybody to know the real truth about my credit card bills and like all the unopened financial mail that I had sitting around. And I was a major avoider. Like, I just didn't want to look at it. I had no idea how much the total of the credit card bills were. And I was so scared to look at anything. So I just kept like doing a tap dance like everything was fine.